Hey everyone, welcome. I'm Laura DeFranco, the CEO of Brave Healer Productions and Brave Kids Books, where we have a mission to wake the world up to what's possible for healing, one brave word at a time. And here today to help me with that mission are some of the most amazing authors of a new book that we have coming out. This book is called The Life-Changing Power of Self-Love, an Essential Guide. A huge thank you to our lead author, Tina Green. Before I introduce these lovely ladies to you, Tina had a big mission, you guys, to bring these talented women together to talk about self-love in all of the kinds of ways we need to hear this. This is life-changing kind of stuff. This is a big mission. And Tina, thank you so much for being in my world and for bringing this stellar cast of authors together to talk about this really, really important topic. I can't wait to introduce these ladies to you today. Alyssa Anaya is the founder of Reverence Events and a Tantra guide specializing in sacred intimacy practices. I have Reverend Annie Mark with me. She's a ceremonialist and workshop leader, honoring as sacred all of life's many phases and stages and passages. Sharon Siegler is a licensed marriage and family therapist practicing in California and online. And Michelle Vesser has 20 years of experience and is the owner of Everything Sacred, tending your inner and outer landscape, where she helps clients as a spiritual counsel and end-of-life doula. Yeah, do you guys feel the power I have in my Zoom room today? I can't wait for this conversation. Alyssa, tell us about your amazing chapter. You're going to start the party off today.
Great. So my chapter is called Tantric Breathwork, How to Have Spiritual Sexual Experiences. It's chapter 8. And I had such a good time writing because I got to share the beginnings of Tantra for me. I got to go back to over 20 years ago when I first encountered my first Tantra teacher and my whole journey of opening up to this amazing, profound energy that essentially healed me from addiction and emptiness in my life. And there were a lot of different aspects to opening to Tantra for me that I describe in the chapter. One of them was opening my sexual energy, but the other was realizing that sexual energy is spiritual energy and they're one and the same, and that life force is the healing power that transformed my life and I know can transform each person's life.
You know, I had a coach say to me once, your sensuality and sexuality is your creativity. If you are blocked there, then all that other stuff you want really bad isn't going to happen like you think it could, would, should, right? And so what would you say to someone who's like, what? Like, how are those connected? Like, and what do I do about it if I didn't really even understand that before?
Yeah, that is such a rich topic. I would say that if you're feeling blocked or uninspired in any area of life that you want creativity, or even if it's just feeling a little bit dead to life or wanting to feel your own juice, to begin with any area that inspires you. If it's picking up a paintbrush, or the channel that works the best for me is breathwork, because it's so easy and it's right there at every moment. So going into some kind of breathwork, it doesn't have to be tantric. It could be Buddhist breathwork or holotropic breathwork or Wim Hof. Any of those things will get you moving. And it's funny that you brought that up, because I just had a conversation yesterday with someone about how, you know, there's this woman who was had great awareness around the connection between sexual and spiritual energy. And she said that when she was writing her book, she would not let herself have an orgasm until she finished what she needed to write, because when you have an orgasm, that can dissipate your creative flow. So she would wait and let that energy build as she was writing to fuel her creativity for the book, which I think is great.
That's interesting. I need more, not less, when I want to write my books. Just saying, it could go both ways. It could go both ways. Alyssa, thank you so much for being here. Okay, Annie, you're next. Tell us about your chapter.
Okay, after hearing that, I'm a little hot. Thank you, Alyssa, and thank you, Laura. It's great to be here with all of you. My chapter is chapter 21, and it's called Meet Me in the Mess. The Only Way Out is Through. And it really is about how this devastating grief that happened actually over 25 years ago changed my life, and how I stayed with myself through it, through the process, through the messiness of it, through uh, all the different stages. And there's no recipe for grieving. Everybody does it differently. And I really write about how I was gutted, and like, it's about my husband's death, but it's also about my own death through that, and how I, with different practices, stayed with myself through it, which was really, I look back on it now as really such an example of self-love, and how that is so important to stay in the messiness of all of it. So that's
Stay with yourself as opposed to what? What do we do instead?
Well, I know for me, I've abandoned myself over and over again, body, mind, spirit, mentally, physically, emotionally. And staying with myself means I stay with myself no matter what I'm feeling, or, grieving is so, all those four quadrants: mental, physical, spiritual, emotional. It hits all those places. And staying with myself means, like, whatever is happening, facing it and being my own sacred witness with love and kindness and compassion, and not trying to fix myself or skip over those parts. And then I can be with other people when they're in that messy place without trying to force anything. So that's what I mean by staying with myself.
And that's a powerful awareness practice that you're talking about, because staying with yourself is a loaded idea. It means a lot of things. It could mean different things to different people, but you're making me think of part of it that you talked about was, not judging it, not forcing yourself to fix a feeling too fast. What else do you want to say about that piece?
Well, exactly. I don't know, trying to, you ever, when you're doing a puzzle and you're trying to force a piece that almost looks like it fits, and you're trying to jam it in. And it's like, that is like, it's like being aware that even if it feels like this, to get somewhere, it's not fitting to be with myself in that. It's not ready. I'm not ready for, progress in this, like that linear kind of progress that we're all so wired for in this society. This is not linear at all. It's like I might find myself one day, I feel great in the grieving process and alive again, and then in the next moment a wave comes and I'm in a fetal position, and needing comfort, so that's a little bit of what I wanted to.
Yeah, I think what people think is the speed dial version to feeling better actually messes them up worse, rather than surrendering to the feeling everything, and being with yourself as you're talking about that through it. It doesn't feel like that's going to be faster, but I actually think it is faster. It's just not, there's no way you feel like that in the moment. Um, What would you say to somebody who's feeling like they're going to die and they want to smash that puzzle piece in harder and do whatever they need to do to get to this other side, right? What would you say?
I would say if they feel like they need to do it, go ahead and do it. And I
Mm.
would say if they feel like they're going to die, I would meet them there in that place and say, truthfully, when you're feeling like you're going to die, there's probably a part of that person that is dying, and not the bigger death, but that there is a death that's happening, and honor that right there. I would meet them right there. I would say, okay, what part of you wants to die, and let's talk about that, and not in a clinical kind of way, but really meet them there as a spiritual collaborator, and be with them through that, and meet them right there where they are, and not skip over that. And if they really want to jam that puzzle piece in, I say, let me just, be your witness as you do that, and see how that works for you.
Wise words, Annie. Thank you for being here. And thank you and all of you for being so vulnerable about the stories you're sharing so that people can realize they're not alone. Really an important part of what's been written in this book. Michelle, tell us about your amazing chapter.
Well, my chapter is the sacred number 13, and it's titled My Journey from Trauma to Self-Love, Liberating Ourselves and Our Unique Gifts. And I was introduced to the brutality and harshness of life at a really early age. My dad was a medic in the US Army in World War II, and his division helped liberate Dachau concentration camp. And so at the age of 4, I would go into my parents' bedroom and sit on my dad's side of the bed and look at snapshots that he kept with him of bodies piled up in boxcars and railroad tracks. And he kept his medals and his swastika that he took with him so he didn't forget. And it was a strange fascination for me. But as I repeatedly did that, it kind of locked in this story that if people really knew who I was, that this is what was going to happen to me. And so there was just a lot of unprocessed grief in my house and other complicated matters. And, I just really struggled. I had learning disabilities. And what locked in is I felt like I didn't fit in this human material world, and I didn't want to live. And so that was a lot at 5, really young not to want to live. But I was really grateful in my story, really talking about that there was this other voice in me that urged me to go out of the house and into the wild world. And that became a grateful through line for me. And I was blessed to work overseas in earth-based cultures and become a gardener and an herbalist. And yet, even though I had all these wonderful things happening in the world, I would spiral down, and I really cracked when I was working in Nepal with my partner. And I said, okay, I have to leave. Like, I knew that I wouldn't make it if I went down again. And so I left the next day, went back to the United States, and just dedicated to find somebody that could support me for the first time. And I just found this amazing woman, Beth Stoffer, and she became my spiritual mother. She really gave me back my life, and this way of that I working through these layers of trauma and tragedy to find this full expression of myself and the depth of self-love. And it was the greatest gift I gave myself. And over the years, I really found different parts that could be healed. And you never know what healing will take you. And now, I'm an end of life doula and a spiritual guide. I could have never imagined that. And I get to help support others to liberate themselves.
Yeah, you don't get to talk to an end of life doula very often. If you are going to tell people what that is and why that's important, what would you say about that role that you've been playing?
Well, I had besides the things with my dad and the pictures, I had a really traumatic death at 17, and there were no tools. And I really struggled. And so I get to be blessed to give people tools, both emotionally, spiritually, physically, practically, that they could turn death into something really sacred. Like, traditional people all used to take care of their loved ones through the dying process and after death care. And it's just become so surprisingly one of the most amazing gifts that's come into my life. And I'm like working with a client this week that is, I got to turn everything around into this place of connection and sweetness and care as their loved one gets ready to depart.
Mm. We published a book a couple years ago called Sacred Death. And
I saw that.
you're just reminding me of that book and all of the different ways we can do this differently, I guess is the words there. Like there's a way to help everyone feel a little bit differently about it and make it sacred. And I think that's amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Sharon, tell us about your amazing chapter.
Hi, it's good to be here. Thank you for having me. I chapter 18, and the name is Befriending My Anxious Parts, Cultivating Peace from Within. And honestly, when I was about to write the chapter, that was not what I was going to write about. And as I was just getting into the writing process, I really allowed myself to just go wild and go into my past and really acknowledge. Well, just to tell you a little bit about where I'm at right now is I've been living in the U.S. For 14 years, and I'm originally from Israel. And only last year I've decided that I'm going to become an American citizen. I was always on the fence. And I think by doing that, I really allowed myself to look at my past and really what it means to be an Israeli and someone who grew up in a state of war. And I think that so basically my chapter is about my journey around anxiety and healing anxiety. And part of what I went through in writing the chapter is really giving space to what it means to live in a war zone, and how anxiety is sort of like a hidden thing because you grow up in a place where everybody's anxious, where everybody's traumatized. And what it means is that there's just no, it's normalized. It's a normalized thing. And so that is part of my chapter. And then another part of my chapter is that I have a lot of ancestral trauma and a lot of Holocaust, well, 3 grandparents who lost all their parents, all their family in the Holocaust. And then also the household I grew up in. And so all of that really created beliefs in me, and a lot of struggles. And anxiety is part of it, and part of it is a really block for self-love, a real block for self-love. And I think by healing the anxiety and by really learning to love my anxious parts, I still struggle with anxiety, even just doing this right now. It's just the truth. And but there is a way where I could still be at peace right now and be with love. And yeah, that's kind of.
So, you mentioned so many things like this layer upon layer upon layer of all equally traumatic and traumatic events and things that happened. And I heard about, you talked about the ancestral component, which is very interesting. And I wonder how you use discernment when you're in your own awareness process to know what's yours to deal with that moment and what might be ancestral, or if it even matters to you.
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I think it is really hard to know what is mine and what is not. And I think in a way it doesn't really matter. That's what is, what is really what I'm coming to, is that part of the journey for me was, rather than blaming my ancestors, my parents, my whoever it is for what I received, rather than feeling like this sucks, was actually really opening my heart to all the hardship that has happened to all of them, and really understanding how limiting that was for them, and how blessed I am for being able to heal all of that and see that and understand that, because things that they haven't been able to do, they had to survive. And so in a way, it doesn't really matter what's mine, what's theirs, what's anybody's, what's my neighbors, as long as I'm able to love those parts that are having a hard time within me, then I feel like that contributes to the healing of all the people I know, and including my ancestors.
No doubt. That's one of the points I wanted to get across to people is sometimes it doesn't matter, because when you do the work, it spreads out in all of the ways. Sharon, thank you so much for being here. So just a huge thank you to all four of you. Thanks not just for saying yes to this project, but for really taking the challenge I gave you to step up vulnerably in your stories. And gosh, when else are we going to do it except for a book about self-love? I mean, I think that's one of the most vulnerable topics in all of the ways you all are talking about it. It goes really deep. And I thank you for that, for not just being superficial about it, but for taking the dive with all of your co-authors and really helping people understand that they are not alone, even when they are facing their own ugliness, however they're judging the place that they're in. I appreciate you all for that so much. Okay, so Annie, I'm going to start with you for this next question. What's the most important thing you want people to know about self-love?
The most important thing would be to show up no matter what for myself, for ourselves. That no matter what, if I can show up, even in the messiness of all of it, that how important that is. And that even if it doesn't feel like progress in the regular way, there's something so powerful about showing up no matter what. I joke with one of the other authors in the book, Stephanie Urbina Jones, and like my first line is, I don't want to write a chapter. I don't want to do this. I don't want to. And then I show up anyway. And I'm always so glad I did, so that would be the most important thing.
I love that piece of advice. I think life is 90% showing up. To take you to whatever direction you're going to go in, you got to show up in some fashion. I love it. Yeah. All right, Michelle, what would your version be of this? What's that most important thing you want people to know about self-love?
It's the most dynamic, freeing gift that you could give yourself. And to keep having that lens, oh, is this really loving me? And to not abandon, I look at all the small ways that I've sort of being like a frog in a pot, you didn't even know it was happening, that I was giving myself away, and to be able to turn back and go, oh, is this loving myself? Yes, yes, yes. And just the freedom that comes from you really being able to live in your truest self.
I'm trying to get the vision of the poor frog in the pot out of my head now. I love frogs.
I know. Who knew that the pot was getting warmer and warmer? I'm like, jump out. I'm like, okay, I'm ready to jump out. It's getting hot in here.
Love it. Sharon, how about you? What do you want people to know about this self-love thing? What's that most important thing to you?
I think it's not, I think it's important to acknowledge that it's not a constant. It's not something that is always available. And it doesn't mean that you don't love yourself if you don't feel your self-love in a certain moment. Because for me, sometimes I can go black and white. and I can feel like, oh, all the work I did, you know, is kind of, if I don't feel that. And then another thing that I really love, another practice that I really love for myself when I have a hard time to, you know, conjure up self-love, is to really get it from the outside, because we are all a part of the earth. We are all a part of nature. And if we look at something outside of us and we love it, then we can actually, and we can feel connected to it, then it can really, for me, it's really helpful to stir up the self-love within. So that just kind of more of like how to connect with the self-love for me is really important to share.
I love
Yeah.
it. I think all of us would agree with that one. Alyssa, how about you? What's the thing you want people to know about self-love? Oh, make sure to unmute, girl.
Thanks. From a tantric perspective, everything is sacred. So all the parts of ourselves, especially the parts that we think we don't like, are sacred and important, an important part of our journey of evolution. And I would offer a challenge to anyone listening to shift your perspective and view everything that comes into your life as sacred, important, and something to embrace. Whether it feels like it's enjoyable or whether it feels like something you'd much rather not experience. You know, sometimes those things that are the most challenging, like aspects of ourselves, like I can be super critical, self-critical, critical of others, and shifting the perspective into seeing, okay, this criticism is a part of the divine universe. So where did it come from? What purpose is it serving? And, you know, maybe the other challenging things, like this morning, I woke up and the dishwasher had spilled water all over because my daughter did the dishwasher for the first time last night and she didn't know how to do it. So there was just water everywhere. And how is this divine? How can I experience mopping up water from my dirty kitchen floor as a gift from the gods? And really just shifting the perspective into surrendering to what is.
I love that one as well. And I love listening to all of your versions of this question. It's really one of the reasons I'm in love with our collaborations, because we need all of your voices and all of your ways of saying what this self-love thing is. It's so different for everybody. So when you all get to read this book, The Life-Changing Power of Self-Love, you're going to find these amazing stories, and you're also going to find some practical strategies, some ways that these authors use their tools to do the things they're talking about. So they are all, and I appreciate you all for this, they're walking their walk every single day. This next question I have for all of you is a little bit about that. Michelle, it goes something like this. You know, authentic healers and coaches, we know that we don't fix people. We empower them to connect with their own inner wisdom. And I would love for you to share one way you personally practice connecting to that inner wisdom. You know, Sharon already kind of touched on it a little bit with her nature answer, so we're going to have to get another way from her in a minute. But how do you connect, Michelle?
Well, one of the practices that and that I offer in the book too is inner tracking, and to really like stay with what is present and to be able to like not push it away. What we generally do if something's hard, we don't want to deal with it. So to actually be with it and stay with it, and to be curious of what's underneath and what's underneath. And so much in my own journey is why I'm able to help other people is I've had to go back to frozen parts of myself. And like in, you know, they talk about that all our coping mechanisms get put into place from 0 to 10. And when we're that young, just trying to get through whatever weird script we were given in this life, we were so young, we don't remember. So to be able to go back and to really tend those younger parts of ourselves and actually be able to take them out of those situations into the wild world, into freedom, into love. And so not being afraid, not going back to re-traumatize, but to actually retrieve and love, because we know more than anybody what our little ones went through. And so that has been just an incredible practice for me and other people that I offer that. So I'm just the guide to getting back to that place.
I love that one. You said, all of our coping mechanisms happen in that period of time. And I'm thinking, what coping mechanisms? Like, I don't even know that we were taught any good coping mechanisms through that period of time, unless we had superb mentors in some capacity, but many of us had none,
Well, I guess
no tools.
What I guess I mean by coping mechanisms, whatever you did to get through. And a lot of times it's thanking your little ones, like, wow, thank you for doing what you did in really harsh circumstances. And maybe they're not serving you anymore, but they got you out of that. And like, look where you are now. Like, how amazing you're in the life you are, because you could have gone 1,000 different directions. And yet look at your life now, because those young ones really, were fierce enough to hold on to their light inside of them to get out. Because look where you are now, Laura. You had something helped you get through to be where you are right now. And I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, I'm glad I asked you that, because that's not how I was thinking about it. So it's really nice to look back and be like, wow, I survived that. So I did have coping mechanisms, and to be loving that little girl. It's important. Sharon, how about you? So coming back to you, you mentioned the connection to nature. Man, I resonate with that one big time. That is one of my ways as well. Is there another way that you wanted to share how you personally practice connecting to that inner wisdom for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I'll share a little bit about the tool that I wrote about in my chapter, which was about, it's kind of like touching on what Michelle said, which is really, like the basic of it is just mindfulness and being aware of ourselves. Without that, we really can't do anything. We really can't understand ourselves without really having that practice, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be meditation, but just having like this, this is our connection to ourselves. And I think that the really powerful thing for me is the word choice, and really feeling like at any point we have a choice, and just really understanding that, looking at ourselves, looking at the choices and seeing, oh, I'm actually choosing something that is not good for me. We do it all the time. And really cultivating compassion to that. Yeah, I'm choosing that because I have, old coping mechanism, or because I have old beliefs that are not serving me anymore. Because of all of that, that's really, just having compassion, bringing in compassion to all the ways that we choose to be in life, to engage in life, and to really see one day making a good choice, and really saying, wow, I chose this thing that I used to choose the other thing all the time, and now I chose that, and really acknowledging I'm changing, in the littlest way. I think these are, like, to me, are really powerful things that really can help bring hope and bring, like more energy to being able to live through this really hard, sometimes crazy life.
Awareness is everything, and you all are dropping such golden nuggets of awareness today here through the book. Oh my gosh, the awareness practices. I mean, with awareness, we get a choice. You mentioned choice. And so that's why awareness is everything to me. And having all of the different ways is so important. Okay, Alyssa, how about you for this one? What's one of the ways you personally connect to that inner wisdom?
Yeah, I am just loving this conversation. I'm just feeling so much wisdom and connection between what we're all saying about being in the present moment and embracing what is It's really beautiful. For me, opening to pleasure is an important practice. I consider myself a pleasure activist, and considering that our sexuality and our spirituality are one and the same energy, opening to our pleasure could be turning our face towards the sun when we're outside and feeling the warmth of its rays on our skin, or in the midst of lovemaking with someone that you've been having sex with for 20 years and starting to feel bored, let yourself open to what is the sensation and can I enjoy it anymore? And letting ourselves open to our own animalistic sensuality, you know, whether it's self-pleasuring or breath work, which I describe in my chapter as a tool. Letting ourselves open to the pleasure that is so close. It's as close as the next breath, and pleasure heals.
I love it. Let's all be pleasure activists, shall we?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, Annie, what about you? What's the way that you connect?
Well, I love everybody's answers, and I'm like, oh yeah, 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 that and that. Definitely connecting to nature. I write in my chapter about how powerful the a consistent writing practice has been for me to connect to my inner wisdom and to meet myself. And part of it is like writing through all the static, the noisiness in my own brain, and like writing through that and getting to the heart of the matter. And over time, my writing practice has become like a prayer, you know, and and it remains that, and it's changing, it's dynamic. Just like I need to walk through some things. Like if I'm agitated, I'll get out there and walk. And it takes a while for me to settle in. And I love meditation, but I need to get through the static first before I can sit quiet in that place of connection. So I think, writing has been a consistent tool for me over many years that has opened my eyes, opened my heart, broken me open, and had me face things that are hard to face, but with this loving, compassionate witness that is me, the inner witness that witnesses all of that. So,
Oh, well, I'm a fan of that one.
yeah.
And I do it every day. That is one of my ways. It's my channel. It's my channel to this thing that's bigger than me. And I instantly know this energy is so much bigger, and I can lean into that and surrender in there. It's such a powerful, powerful tool. Actually, this is so perfect because I've got one last question for all four of you, and I kind of want to do a little bit briefer version of the answer. This is you all giving people ideas about how this rolls with you personally, how you've made things happen with your tools and strategies, awareness practices, the walk that you walk every day. I think it's so important. You all have taken that on, trailblazed it, modeled it, been the master teachers for people who need to see what's possible when they are in this deep, deep pain. On this journey to self-love, I know I've come up against some pretty difficult limiting beliefs inside my own head. And I think this part of the journey, understanding this self-sabotaging thought pattern, if we understand it, it can be a game changer, total game changer on the journey. So I want to know what one of these limiting beliefs has been for you and how you've navigated or transformed it. I'm going to model this for you all. One of the worst ones for me is you're not smart enough to do that. And if I wanted to get super ugly version, I'd say you're an idiot. That's the horrible, limiting, self-sabotaging BS. I now can call it out as BS. Right? And how I've transformed it, I just get to go back to what Annie said through journaling. because when I get it onto my paper, I become the witness and I look at that stuff and I'm like, whoa, really? You think that? Like, no wonder, right? And I can talk to it. I can have a conversation. I can step away, which is the awareness. I can observe that own limiting belief, however it got there, whatever I was taught in the past, however I was conditioned into that self-talk, right? And of course, all of you I know will agree with me. It's way, way more effective when you love on yourself through the self-talk versus crap like that that's just gonna dump you down the hole, right? So, Sharon, what's one of the thoughts that you've had that you've overcome? And this is, I'm asking y'all to be vulnerable about this. Like, what was your hard one and how did you transform it?
Honestly, I have so many, and I have
We all do.
I have overcome a lot of them. One of the ones that come to mind is that I have nothing to offer, that I have nothing to give people. And honestly, I don't really know exactly how I overcame it other than just fake it till I make it. Because one of the things that you know what, I'll tell you, actually, one of the things that really, really helps me and is still helping me is to talk about it, to share about all these like secret shamey things. So just to say, like, this is how I'm feeling, I feel like I have nothing to offer, and I always receive so much out of it, even if it's just understanding or just be like, what? You have so much to offer. And I now know it. I know I have so much to offer. So
I love that one. Yes, because as soon as you call out shame, it dissolves. Like it can be very instant, like feels like a miracle when we talk
exactly.
about it. You can be brave enough to talk about it, right? Which I knew you all would be able to play with me today about this, right? Alyssa, your version, like what's one of the thoughts and either how you transformed or maybe what's the opposite thing you tell yourself these days? Give us that.
Yeah, I had a lot of blocks to becoming a leader because I don't think I'm very good with words. When I get in front of people, I can really stumble over my words and feel like I'm just not eloquent and I can't talk. And so it really has been a huge barrier for me to overcome. But what I realized is that it doesn't really matter what my words are. It's actually people are drawn to me for my energy and for the inner work that I've done. It's more of an energetic resonance. And so the words, of course, matter, but not as much as the fact that I know that I have done this inner transformation and that people will come to me because they want to experience that. And that energetic exchange is actually more important than the words. And it's turned out to be true because I still am pretty uneloquent a lot of the time, but I have a lot of people who want to learn from me. So I feel very blessed.
Yeah, the energy is everything. Annie, how about you? Give us that limiting belief and how did you transform it?
Well, I wrote a song this last year called Intervention. And I started out by calling out and it's when I'm doing something new, the old patterns rise back up. I'm a fake, I'm a failure, I'm a fraud, I'm a loser. It's brutal. It's like name calling myself. And I was just like, I was so struck with that I put it to music and how and meeting myself right there and like they may be lies, but in the moment I believe those lies like they feel true. And to honor like for whatever reason, it's almost like that part of myself that needs attention and love. And I was like surprised by that. It was something I was doing new or like writing a chapter or doing something that scares me. And those voices come back so loud. So I wrote that song called Intervention about meeting, like really, like we need an intervention. Like that inner wise part of me needs to meet that part that is calling me names and have a little like, you know, let's meet for tea and see what we can come up with that is a better way to handle things. So that's, you know, I don't have a one and done answer, but that was one way that I worked with it.
That's
Just
brilliant. Honestly, brilliant. I do poems, same deal. I write myself poems about these topics. And Annie, you're such a brilliant and talented singer-songwriter. I would love everyone to know that. So I'm going to shout it out today. So that's one reason you need to explore what Annie is up to.
thank you.
Yes. Alyssa, how about you? You're going to close this party out today. Give us that limiting belief that you've had, and what's the transformation or the opposite thing that you're believing nowadays?
It's actually Michelle's turn.
Oh, sorry, guys. Michelle, I've got my notes in front of me, I swear. Michelle, you're going
Thank
to
you.
finish us out today.
Well, I grew up feeling like I didn't belong, that I wasn't enough, and yeah, that I had a fatal flaw. And, you know, just for my educational trauma, just all of it. And what's been happening for me lately, what comes up in my mind, I feel like, oh, I'm able to see my like how my mind works, that like I'm bad. No, I'm trying to prove I'm good. I'm bad. And so lately I've just been like, I'm bad, I'm good, I'm bad, I'm good, I'm bad, I'm good, and like I'm just me being in the world, and just leaning in. What I think has been a really interesting thing is just leaning into my drama. Like in my chapter, I talk about like I started working in prison. Like I went into this place of incarceration that I've been so fearful of persecution. And so it's like breaking through all those stories and being me and seeing that our hearts are all whole if we're held with care and love and dignity and connection to the wild world. Like we all are beautiful. And how do we move beyond all those limiting beliefs and stories? And so this thing of looking at my dualistic mind and breaking through my dualistic mind has been really kind of an amazing, profound, and really fun way these days for me to move forward into myself and love myself.
I really appreciate that, and kind of calling yourself out about that, because you and a lot of other people I know, including myself, have that going on. And we might think certain things about ourselves from what we've been told or heard or read, or, oh, you know, whatever, however we want to judge it. But what a game changer when you can have fun with it. That is a total game changer. Authors, thank you so much for what you do in the world and for being here to share it with everyone. I want our listeners to know that this is so much more than a book. It is a very generous community. So drop down into the show notes where I have all of these powerful, talented women hooked up with their websites. Go explore, see what they're up to. I know if something they said today gave you the goosebumps or resonated and you're just curious and you want to see what else is up in their world, they're ready for you to reach out. And you can ask them questions. You can carry on the conversation that you heard today, whatever it is. This is a really amazing community beyond our books. So please go do that. And also please remember, join us for our live stream book launch party. You can join the live stream on the Brave Healer Productions Facebook page, or you can even come onto Zoom and celebrate with us. It's going to be November 13th, 12 to 1 Eastern, the life-changing power of self-love. We're going to have all the authors there to introduce themselves and talk about the book. And of course, if you're listening after that date, that just means you can hop over to Amazon and grab your copy of this beautiful book. Lastly, today, everyone, remember, your words change the world when you're brave enough to share them. So it is time to be brave. Thank you, ladies. See you next time, everyone.
Thank you.